Hi, welcome back to number 3 of our Enneagram mini-series. I'm here with my friend Cari at Beacons of Bravery podcast, and we're so excited and then so sad that this is our final mini-series episode. But don't fret, because if you have any questions, keep sending them to us, because we're going to do another bonus episode and answer all of your questions. I hope you've enjoyed this Enneagram walkthrough as much as I have. Here's part 3, the Head Triad. Hi, friend. I am so excited that you're here to check out Her Restored Spirit podcast. If you've gone through something that has left you broken-spirited, maybe it's a divorce, loss of a spouse, or even a child, loss of a job, whatever it is, I know there is restoration in your future. I'm a widowed mom, and I remember what it feels like to emerge from the fog to discover that my loss is not the center of my story, but it actually instilled in me a new hope, a new understanding of faith, and a new strengthening in my heart, soul, and motherhood. I have finally understood that God has taken my test and formed it into my testimony, and that's why I'm here with you. I want you to step into your purpose, into a newfound joy, and to turn a new page in your book, because I believe you are on the brink of full restoration, unlocking a confidence that you didn't know was inside you, and understanding how to live more fruitfully with purpose, joy, and permission to be washed in possibility. It's time, friend, to reclaim your restored spirit.
Tammy and I are back with our third episode in our Enneagram series, and we are so excited. How are you, Tammy?
I am good. It's been a little bit of a crazy day, but
Yeah.
I'm ready to talk about the Enneagram a little bit more.
Yeah. So we have covered the gut and the heart triads. And if you have missed any previous episodes, please go back so you understand what in the world we're talking about. And today we're going to cover the head triad. And those numbers are?
Those numbers are 5, 6, and 7,
Okay.
the final 3. And so this is called the head triad or the thinking center.
Okay.
And so
let's talk about fives.
okay.
They're interesting to me, so I'm excited to see what you're going to say about them and who can relate. So,
Yes.
who is a 5?
Okay. So a 5 is someone who is a investigative thinker. So these individuals really need to know the why behind things. They want to research, they want to know how things work. They are usually like really smart and have so much knowledge because of all the research they do. And so they can just pop off information that you're like, how do you know that? And it's because they just soak in information. Their core fear is being annihilated, invaded, or not existing, being thought incapable or ignorant, having obligations placed upon them, or energy being completely depleted. So, in a nutshell,
big thing, right?
Yes. So, energy is one way that we really can determine a 5.
Okay.
And so one analogy that many of the Enneagram gurus use, which is actually a perfect analogy for this, is a 5, think of a cell phone battery. So you plug it in when you go to bed, and when you wake up, your cell phone's going to be at 100%, right? Well, for a 5, they will plug it in the same time every other number does. But when they wake up, it is only at a 75%, not 100. So they're never really fully recharged. So they're always afraid. And that's one reason many 5s are like really strong introverts. Mm-hmm. And it's because they need that energy. They need to step back and recharge periodically throughout the day. Like they can't just go a full day like a 7, which we'll talk about soon. Yeah. But they need to plan their day based on their activities and the people they're going to interact with. Now, there can be 5s who are extroverts. Really? However, even the extrovert 5s are a little bit more subdued. Like they can go and they can recharge with people, but it's still don't charge to 100. So they still have to, be around their good friends or their family or in whatever extrovert way.
Mhm.
But it still has that feeling of, if I do this, will I have enough energy to do this, this, and this?
Mhm.
So they have to plan it out.
So in my mind, when I think of a 5, I think of an engineer type person. Analytical,
Mhm.
likes the data, wants to know all the stuff. Is that wrong or?
No, I don't think it's wrong. Now, I wouldn't say that every five is likes that sort of detail,
Yeah.
but I would agree that these are the ones that you want to be on your team because they're going to do the research. They're going to make sure all of the numbers line up. They're going to make sure that all of the patterns and all of everything your goals are, they're going to do the work to make sure that it's going to end up how you want it.
You're not missing a step along the way.
Exactly. Exactly. You have thoroughly researched every aspect.
Yeah. Well, I would think, just me thinking, that this wouldn't be a huge percentage of the population. I know we've talked about that before, but
Right.
they're very necessary. But I would think they're maybe not a, a strong majority.
And who knows? It might be that there's a lot more of them, but they are just inside reading books and so they and conserving their energy. I have some good friends who are fives, and I know that for them to come and hang out with me, that they have to plan it and hang out. They think it through, and I know that when we're done, like it's over. Like I need to respect their space, and I love them for that because it's very like, okay, well, we've done the thing, so now I'm gonna go, and I'm like, okay, love you, bye. but it's but yeah, so I mean, I don't know like what the true numbers are
Right.
for, how many people are each number, but I would say that there's probably a lot more of them than they're just the ones who are kind of loners,
Yeah.
because a lot of times it is people who drain them.
Hmm.
And so, and it's also people who place obligations on them that they don't want. And
Hmm.
so, if that's what you are avoiding, like obligations being placed on you, then you're going to avoid the people who do that. So, I think there's probably more of them. We just don't see them. They're probably behind the computer screen and, saving the world that way.
And as a 9 that I've committed to, I see myself in a 5 as well because I love to read books. I mean, I don't want to go on a podcast or teach a course unless I know every bit of information that I think could be asked, because I don't want to be looked at as, I don't know what I'm doing. So I think
Well, that also comes from your one wing.
true.
So I mean, the need for research may be partly a five, but it's also the fact that you want to be seen as good and
Hmm.
you want to be seen as right and ethical, and that what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But yes, I believe that I'm a pretty strong five as well, or at least I have those tendencies because I love knowing everything about it. But
Mhm.
again, I know that it's through the eyes of a one that tells me like I want to make sure that I get it right before I go and talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point there. So, moving on to the 6s.
Yes.
Who are these people?
So the sixes are your loyal guardians. These individuals are they are so much fun. Like they are and by fun, I mean they are fun to watch sometimes because and I'm picturing one in particular. One of my best friends is fully a six, and I like to think of sixes like a Google tab, like they are a Google browser, whereas you may have one or two tabs open while you're browsing. Well, in their brains, they have about 90 tabs open, constantly scanning the horizon, constantly scanning the world for every case scenario possible. So if you are planning or you have a thought of, okay, I want to go to the Grand Canyon next week. Well, then the six is going to automatically start planning on everything that could go wrong,
Yeah.
And typically they don't automatically go to what could go right, because in general humans don't do that. It's a lot easier to see the worst case scenario than it is to see the best case.
Mm-hmm.
It's called a negative bias, and it's just human nature.
Mm-hmm.
But they will come up with every possible scenario, and they will make sure that everything is covered, that everything's packed properly, that they have every contingency. So if there is rain, if there decides to be a snowstorm at the Grand Canyon, they will be prepared for that. And they know that, the chances in the summer may be slim, but doesn't matter. They're ready for it anyway, because it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
They want to make sure that they are not without support.
Mm-hmm.
So their fears is actually fear itself. And so being without support, security, or guidance, they don't want to be blamed, targeted, alone, or physically abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
So these individuals it's all about security and support and guidance. And they will do what they need to do to make sure that they don't lack that.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that is different between a 6 and other numbers is, how I mentioned for an Enneagram 1, you have the inner critic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the 6s, they actually have an internal committee. So I like to picture it as like a boardroom, where it's like that long oblong shaped table,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got everyone sitting, and they're constantly, they have a decision, and everybody talks and gives their opinion. So they've got multiple opinions in their head, to
Mm-hmm.
the point where if they're not on a healthy path, they seem to be very indecisive, and
Mm-hmm.
they seem to not be able to commit to any one direction. But when you've got 10 people talking in your head, telling you all the things that you should be doing and you should be worrying about, and you don't do that, oh no, that's terrible. That's terrible. That's terrible. This is the best way. No, that's not the way. It's really hard to commit to anything. And
Mm-hmm.
so they start to depend on other people to make the decisions for them.
Yeah.
Because if other people make the decisions, then they can trust it. And many times you'll see that they will blindly follow authority figures
Mm-hmm.
because of the lack of trust on their part. And so this is why, they're the loyal guardians. They're super loyal, but also can be taken advantage of because they are very loyal, and they trust easily because they don't trust themselves.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where they can get in trouble a little bit.
So you want them to be on a trip with you because they will have
Yes,
every tool necessary with them, but might
absolutely.
be kind of a buzzkill if you want to try something new, right?
You just have to convince them a little bit more.
Okay. Because they are thinking, like you said, of every different scenario that could go on.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I,
Yes.
I mean, I think it's a positive thing. Like every number, they have
Mm-hmm.
positive things.
Absolutely. Oh no,
You
I
want them
I
on
think
a
it's
team.
definitely necessary on a team.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of, oh, who is that guy on Avengers that is the time can see all of the future? Um, oh, anyway, everyone listening automatically knows. It's like, how do you not know this guy? And I do. I'm picturing him,
I could
but
probably ask my son in the other room.
yeah, in the other room. But I think that's who a 6 is they can go through and they do the little head thing as they're checking all of the scenarios and saying, there's only one way. I can't tell you because I don't trust it, but there's one way.
Yeah, I love that. So we love our 6s as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the 7s, which is
Okay.
the number I have to admit I'm the most envious of. I want to
Okay.
be a 7. I
Okay.
love what they are, but then it's also a little sad to me. So let's go into a 7.
Okay. A 7 is the entertaining optimist. So these are our fun loving,
Mm-hmm.
always up for an adventure people. And I will say, as much as you want to be a 7, when I first read about 7s, I was like, oh no, like that, I am definitely not a 7. And which is interesting because when a 1 is moving towards growth, we move towards a 7. And I realized that when I embrace the 7, I'm a lot more fun when I'm embracing the 7.
Yeah.
So 7s are up for anything. These are the individuals who just are the life of the party.
Mhm.
Anytime they're around, they are the party. Like they don't even need a party and they'll bring it.
Yeah.
They fear being deprived or trapped in emotional pain, limited or bored, or missing out on something fun. Like they have major FOMO. Like 3s and 7s are the ones that have the most FOMO.
Yeah.
And it's it's all because they just want to live life fully. They want to feel and experience everything life has to offer,
Mhm.
all while avoiding being bored or trapped in some kind of emotional pain.
Yeah.
And so many times they're so focused on the experience, they actually don't enjoy the experience, or they don't feel it because they're already on to, now I've achieved this, I need to do the next thing, I need to do the next thing, always on kind of their adrenaline junkies.
Mhm.
Now it's also this number, and every number could become, have addictive behaviors,
Mhm.
but this number in particular, because they just need more and more and more, the addictive tendencies are seen more in this number.
And when I mentioned the sad part of them, it is a lot of times they're going from thing to thing because they don't want to feel their feelings, that they want
Absolutely.
to experience outwardly, but not go internally. Is that
Yes. Well, their core motivation is being happy, fully satisfied, and content.
Mhm.
Well, being bored and feeling negative feelings is the exact opposite of those. That is their fear, is being trapped in this dark pain. And so they just go to the next thing in order to experience that, and they avoid it. And so, yeah, if they are not healthy and if they don't have friends, especially a 4, to say, hey, let's sit in this for a little bit, let's deal with this, a lot of times they can find themselves running and they don't know why.
Mhm.
They don't even realize, because they're just looking for that contentment. They're
Mhm.
looking for what's next.
Mhm.
And one of the things that they really want to know the most is that they will be taken care of, that it's okay, that they don't have to experience everything to
Mhm.
experience love and happiness, and that they can just be completely satisfied in who they are and not the experiences that they have.
Interesting. And I know a whole nother route we could take, and we won't in this series, but relationships, whether it be marriage, friendships, whatever, numbers with numbers, and then also teammates. It's like we've talked about, it gives you understanding, but also it gives you real empathy for the pain that is
Mhm.
probably underneath there. So, I
Right.
mean, there is some pain, but they're also, like you said, life of the party, and we want to be around them.
Right. But when it's time for them to feel that pain, you've got to be there for them, because it's not comfortable for them. As much as for everyone else it's not comfortable, for them, they've spent their entire life avoiding it. And so sometimes you get to the point where you can't run anymore. And so they need the support
Yeah.
of the people around them. And sometimes that means that we have to sit with them and say, no, it's okay. We're
Mhm.
going to feel this. No, we're not going to move until we feel this emotion, and just to help them realize that it's okay and that it's feelings are fleeting. They won't last forever.
Mhm. I love that. So we've come to the end of our numbers and our triads. And I think you have done a great job of explaining everything. And I know people will want to hear more and do more and work with you on coaching related to their number. But is there anything we haven't talked about as far as the Enneagram and numbers that you want to kind of leave us with?
Yeah, one of the things that's really popular to know about the Enneagrams is the wings.
Mhm.
And so I'm just going to briefly explain what the wings are, because there's a lot of, and then, yeah, there's a lot of like information, and it's just people start throwing out numbers. Oh, I'm a 1 wing 9. I'm a 7 wing 6, and sometimes they don't understand what they are,
Right.
and so the wings. So you look at your main number. So with you being a 9,
Mm-hmm.
which is at the top of the circle, you think of that as the body of the bird, and then the wings are on the left and the right of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so your wings are 8 and 1. And so a lot of times people they resonate with a they resonate with the, like you said, the 9, but you have some 5. So they're like, oh, I'm a 9 wing 5. Well, that's not possible.
Right.
Now there's a thing called tri-types, because again, we have every number inside of us, right? And then we also, every one of us uses our head, our heart, and our gut.
Mm-hmm.
And so we actually have a main number in each of those numbers. So your tri-type,
Oh.
you're in your heart, in your head triad, you may be a stronger 5 than you are a 6 or 7. So that may be one of your 3 main numbers, but your 9 is always the front.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, you have a either 2, 3, or 4 in you as well that's stronger than the others.
Mm-hmm.
So you have one of those. So when you have 2 numbers that you feel closely related to, like, no, I definitely have some 5 in me, like it's a strong 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably part of your tri-type, and so it makes sense.
Yeah.
But for the wings, it's on either side of you. So as for me, I'm an Enneagram 1. I have a 9 wing and I have a 2 wing.
Mm-hmm.
And at any given time, like, you can use both of the wings.
Mm-hmm.
Typically one is stronger than the other.
Right.
But I think as you grow and as you mature, there's times that it will switch which one, or they'll start to balance out. And really, when you are in growth, you're learning to use both wings evenly, and you're bringing in both aspects and both strengths, and helping those to see your weaknesses and alleviate them, and to choose your choices, because that's one of the things that the Enneagram allows you to do, is when you start understanding your fears, you can see why you're reacting the way you are, and you can choose a different path. So beforehand, you can start to change your patterns simply by acknowledging, oh, I'm acting in fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so let me choose a different way.
It's interesting to me as a 9 that 8 is a wing, because they seem so completely different. But what you're saying right now, I can understand, because I'm so middle of the road usually. As a 9, I want to get along with everyone. Mm-hmm. But maybe when I'm being strong, I'm going to be an 8 and I'm going to stand up for something, and so it's just interesting.
Well, and it's because you're still you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that 8, that passion, that need for justice that comes from an 8, like, that's inside of you too. Mm-hmm. So you can pull from that when you need to step up and you need to fight for someone. And the one thing that's interesting is, because you are a 9 and a lot of times you fall asleep to your own desires, mm-hmm. and you kind of, you understand everyone else's. Well, bringing in that strong 8, when you're focused on other people, you can get stronger and stronger and stronger. Mm-hmm. And so it comes a little bit more naturally, but we need to learn to use it on ourselves and really find what you want, and then use that strength and to propel you.
Yeah. I love that. And I mean, we can go through every number and kind of say these same things. But again, we've scratched the surface, just literally scratched the surface. So again, we ask for questions, because we'll be back. We will always be back. We will answer questions, and Tammy knows her stuff. So
if I don't have the answer, I have groups that I can go to. Again, I'm an Enneagram coach, and I love studying the Enneagram, but I don't know everything. Mm-hmm. And so I love learning about it. So ask me any questions and I will dig and find it. And yeah, like, it's so much fun.
So I would love both of our audiences, if they have listened to this whole series and they know all our social media and all that, I would love if they would drop what number they think they are, mm-hmm. in a message to us in some kind of way. It's just interesting to see, who we've reached and what number you think you are.
Yes.
You agree?
I do. I think it would be great to see that and to get that information, and maybe we can give you a little tidbits and different things
Mhm.
on some hints or just some cues on what you could focus on.
Mhm.
One of the things I think we might have mentioned it the first time, but I'll mention it again. I will put the two tests that I really like
Mhm.
into the show notes.
Uh-huh.
But also remember when you're sitting when you're taking the assessment, you want to make sure that you sit and you take it in one sitting. It takes about 40 minutes, so it's a little bit longer of an assessment, but for a good reason. And you want to think back to when you're in your 20s.
Mhm.
And so that way you're really like intense about your responses. So you just, go with your gut, go with your, or if you're, if you're in the head triad, go with your head. If you're in your heart triad, go with your heart. Whatever comes naturally to you, but just go with what your instinct tells you, and don't judge yourself for what your answer is, because
Right.
again, not any of these numbers are wrong.
Mhm.
And every one of these numbers, they have their strengths and their weaknesses.
Mhm.
But without each one, we would be missing out big time. Without our ones, we wouldn't have, the ethical rules that we have. We wouldn't have the people who really try to get things right. Without two, we wouldn't have the support. Without threes, we wouldn't have the go-getters who are the big dreamers. Without the fours, we wouldn't be able to sit in any emotions, and we wouldn't have our poets.
Right.
Without fives, we wouldn't have our, researchers. We wouldn't have these amazing research. Wouldn't have our scientists. We wouldn't have these people who are willing to go and sit in books and behind a microscope day in and day out. Without six, we won't have our loyal guardians who are looking out for our best interest and planning every, worst case scenario to make sure you're safe. Without our sevens, we would not have fun.
Right.
We would be all work. Even the threes who want success and want grandeur, they're without the sevens, no one will know how to enjoy it. Without the eights, we are not going to have the people who are standing up for the little guy. We don't have that strength in those, the people who are the protective challengers who would be willing to bulldoze anyone to make sure that there's justice. And without the nine, we wouldn't have the peaceful mediators who are like, okay, guys, we can all see things from each other's perspective if we just step back and have compassion for each other. So every number is so important.
Mhm. And I love how you just summarized that. And I feel like it's a great way for us to end our series. And again, tell my audience where they can find you.
Yes, I have a podcast called Her Restored Spirit Podcast. It's on Apple and everywhere else that you listen to podcasts. I also have a website. It's tammymariecoaching.com, and that's in the show notes, but it's TAMI. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Tammy Marie Coaching.
Love it.
Yes, and how about, so for my audience, how could they find you, Cari?
Well, Beacons of Bravery podcast is what we're streaming on now on my side. And then also on Instagram, I'm Cari, CARI.Normand, NORMAND. And at Facebook, at Cari Yoakum Normand. I love to have connect both ways with you. And so please DM us, email us, and then also beaconsofbravery@gmail.com. So we want your questions. We want to come back, and actually maybe we can have a couple guests on our show who are wondering their numbers, and we can kind of go from there. What do you
That
think?
would be fun.
Yeah.
That would be fun. We should
Yeah.
try that. If there's any brave soul who wants to talk about their number, and my guess it'll be a seven who volunteers first.
Right. I love it.
And the fives will say no, thank you.
So I'm going to research it a lot more before I go anywhere.
Absolutely. Well, this has been so much fun, Cari. Thanks for doing this with me, and I look forward to working with you again and talking to you soon.
Yeah.
In fact, I know that on my podcast that you're actually going to do an interview and we're going to learn more about you coming up soon.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait.
It'll be fun.
Okay, well, thanks, Tammy. And
You're
thank you all
welcome.
for listening to our series. And I hope you got a lot of benefit from it.
And if anything, I hope you had fun with it.
Right.
All
Bye for now.
right. Bye. Hey, friend, I hope you loved today's episode. I hope you start to claim the confidence to walk in a judgment free zone as you continue this healing journey. Now, I want to invite you to look into working with me. I'm a full time restoration and confidence coach with a background in marriage and family therapy. And not only that, but friend, I've walked it. As you heard in my story, I've experienced grief, loss, pain, feeling stuck. I've had the desire to break free from the fog and rise up again after the hurt, after the pain, and move out of the grief cycle, to begin to wake up with purpose again and live a life of meaning, and kind of rediscover who I was before the grief while I was uncovering who I'm becoming. And I have been called to help you with the same thing. So if you feel you're ready to step back into the light, wash away the old, not forgetting the past, but stepping into a new position of purpose, confidence, and identity, I would love to be your coach and mentor through the process. I only take a few clients each month and would love to get you on the calendar to help you navigate this journey. Email me at tammy@tammymurraycoaching.com. Until then, I'll meet you here next week with another awesome topic to help you claim the life that you desire. Don't forget to take a screenshot, tag me, share on Facebook and Instagram, and please share this with another broken spirited mom who is in need of some soul restoration. Don't forget to rate and review, and until next time, take a deep breath and know there is hope. Bye, friend.